I want to live next to people that I can communicate with. How dare you? What, you want to be able to understand what your neighbors are saying to you? Well, you xenophobic bigot. All right, J.D. Vance is taking some flack today for a variety of reasons. He's always taking flack, but he's also taking flack because of this clip of an interview with, I believe, the New York Post. Watch.
Who's out of the house is actually evicted from the house because there are people who are going to pay more for rent. And then what happens is 20 people move into a 3-bedroom house, 20 people from a totally different culture, totally different ways of interacting. Again, we can respect their dignity while also being angry at the Biden administration for letting that situation happen and recognizing that their next door neighbors are going to say, well, wait a second. What is going on here? I don't know these people. They don't speak the same language that I do. And because there are 20 in the house next door, it's a little bit rowdier than it was when there was just a family of 4, a family of 5. It is totally reasonable and acceptable for American citizens to look at their next door neighbors and say, I want to live next to people who I have something in common with. I don't want to live next to 4 families of strangers.
Actually, that's the Pod Force One with Miranda Devine podcast, is where that interview is happening. I guess people are upset because he said it's reasonable to want to live next to people who speak English. That's the thing that's supposed to be controversial. I want to live next to people that I can communicate with. How dare you? What, you want to be able to understand what your neighbors are saying to you? Well, you xenophobic bigot. You have a basic desire to be able to communicate with people in your own community. I've never heard something so offensive. But no, we want to be around people who are like us. We want to have people or be around people who we have some commonality with, who we can communicate with. And that should be very non-controversial. You want to be able to communicate with your neighbors. You want to have an actual community. And community is impossible if you can't communicate. Communicate. Commune is right there in the root word, right? It's not a coincidence. You can't have one without the other. Is that xenophobic? Well, you can call it whatever you want. I really don't care. So if somebody wants to say it's xenophobic, my answer is, okay, fine. And that should be all of our answer anytime. Anytime someone throws a label like bigot, racist, it doesn't matter. The only answer that you should give is, whatever, fine. If that's what you want to say, go ahead. And I think, and the right is picking up on this finally. This is something that the right is picking up on. And you look at the effect it's had. It's completely neutralized the attack. I mean, for years and years and years, the left would go, you're racist, you're a bigot. And on the right, we would say, no, we're not. That's ridiculous. That is not true. Let me prove to you why it's not true. No, you're the racist one. You're the bigoted one. That was the response. It's a very defensive response for many years. And all it did was encourage more of it. And now finally, when they accuse us of that, and finally when we kind of shrug our shoulders and say, whatever. Are you admitting? Well, whatever you want to think. Whatever you think. You can think whatever you want about me. I really don't care. I don't care that you think that about me, right? Like, that's the answer. You're a racist. Okay, well, I don't care that you think that. And you look at how much that has neutralized the attack. It's like, it's a completely impotent attack. It doesn't mean anything anymore because of that. So, xenophobic, it's like, I don't care. You can call it whatever you want. But also, just for the record, in reality, factually, no, it's not xenophobic. Xenophobic means fear, and this is not fear. In fact, xenophobic literally means fear of the stranger, xeno from the Greek for stranger. But that's not what this is. This is not fear of a stranger. It's love of your countrymen. It's a desire to be around people you share a common language with, a common history with. It's natural. It's human. It's not even just human. I mean, this is an inclination shared by most species on Earth to some extent. It is embedded in nature. And you want to be around people who are like you. And the left, of course, will allow that for people, for most people. The left will allow that and even encourage it for In fact, every kind of person on earth except white Americans. They're the only ones. White Americans are the only humans on earth who are not allowed to have any inclination at all towards being around people who are like them. The only group that's not allowed to have that inclination. And that, of course, is absurd. Speaking of J.D. Vance, I also wanted to talk about this because he did a TPUSA event yesterday. And when I heard that he was speaking at TPUSA, I'll be honest, I assumed that he would not be doing the other part because the TPUSA event, of course, it's you give a speech and then you take questions from the audience. That's usually how it would go. That's what Charlie would do. And I heard he was speaking, and I figured that he would not do that part. He wouldn't do the second part of taking questions. And I assume that because what kind of politician, let alone the vice president of the United States, would actually stand there on stage on a live stream and allow a whole line of college students or anyone else to come up to the microphone, ask whatever they want to ask for an entire hour, and you have no control over what they're going to say. No politician would do that, and no vice president would ever do that. And so I assumed that they wouldn't, but that's exactly what Vance did, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. I mean, I don't think people appreciate enough because I saw these clips circulating of him talking to various people in the audience during the Q&A portion. I don't think people appreciate enough just how radical this is. I mean, this is radical transparency and openness for a politician, especially a politician at that level. I mean, most of your average just run-of-the-mill congressmen would never do this, ever. Okay, they would never put themselves in this kind of position. But a vice president? Like, has any vice president ever done anything like this exactly? I'm not saying that the vice presidents have done town halls and that sort of thing, but those are much more controlled. This is not controlled at all. And so it's pretty high risk. And this stuff is not easy. It's not as easy as it may look sometimes. It's not as easy as it looks when you see a person who's really good at it do it, right? Because it's not. I mean, I've done it plenty of times myself. I have a lot less on the line because I'm not the vice president. But you've got a whole line of people. You're live on camera. And so you have absolutely no control over what they're going to say. And you know that some of the people in that line are only there because they want to embarrass you. So plenty of people who are fans or supporters that are going to ask nice, interesting, thoughtful questions, and that's great. But there are some people in that line that they have one intention, and that is to embarrass you. And the dynamics are skewed because they've really got nothing to lose, and you've got much more to lose than they do in this back and forth. So it's high stakes. It is a pretty high stakes thing. And I think Vance deserves a lot of credit for doing it. I think he did very well. I thought he was great. We're living in a time when lies are easy and truth is costly, and nowhere is that more devastating than in the battle for life. It's exactly what Natalia faced. When she first learned of her pregnancy, Natalia considered abortion, and she was influenced, of course, by messaging she'd been exposed to all the time in the culture. But everything changed when she heard her baby's heartbeat. And in that moment, she felt a divine calling to continue her pregnancy, trusting that God would make a way forward. Natalia chose life, found herself surrounded by the love, support, and resources she needed. At Preborn Network Clinics, this happens on average 200 times a day because of the support from people like you. Moms who are overwhelmed and pressured suddenly see their child hear the truth and realize they're not alone. That moment of truth costs just $28. And to sponsor an ultrasound doubles a baby's chance at life. This is not a time for silence. It is a time for courage, a time for truth, a time for life. Give now, dial pound 250. Say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, baby, or visit preborn.com/Walsh. That's preborn.com/Walsh. Here's one moment that I wanted to play. Here's a woman accusing Vance of putting policies in place that hurt immigrants. Let's listen.
you are pushing out policies that hurt us. And these policies are not even solving the problems. These policies are just creating chaos.
Ma'am. Okay, so again, I'm gonna finish answering the question, and then if I've answered all 9 of your questions in less than 15 minutes, then we can keep on going. We got to have a little fun, right? So here's the thing. I can believe that the United States should lower its levels of immigration in the future, while also respecting that there are people who have come here through lawful immigration pathways that have contributed to the country. But just because one person or 10 people or 100 people came in legally and contributed to the United States of America, does that mean that we're thereby committed to let in 1 million or 10 million or 100 million people a year in the future? No, that's not right. We cannot have, I'll go and finish. We cannot have an immigration policy where what was good for the country 50 or 60 years ago binds the country inevitably for the future. There's too many people who want to come to the United States of America, and my job as vice president is not to look out for the interests of the whole world, it's to look out for the people of the United States.
So there you go. My job as vice president is not to look out for the interests of the world, it's to look out for people of the United States. Very well said, again. And I've already said it, but the vice president debating college students live on camera is pretty remarkable. And he's exactly right. He's exactly right. And this is it's the kind of statement that shouldn't even need to be made by a politician. It certainly should not be a provocative or controversial position, but it is, which shows you the state we're in. But of course, and that's the whole point about immigration. This is why I've said all along about illegal immigration that, I want to shut it down completely. I want to deport all the illegals. I also want to shut down all immigration for a time. But it's not anything personal against the illegal immigrants. It's personal against them when they're bad people and they're criminals that are coming here, which many of them are. I mean, they're all criminals because they broke the law, but when they're, when we're talking about drug dealers and so on that are coming, it's a little more personal. But in general, it's not like a personal. I get why you came. I would do this. I'd probably do the same thing. If I was in Mexico, I don't want to live in Mexico. And if I thought I could get away with just going into entering America illegally, and I don't know, I can just skip all the paperwork and all that kind of stuff. I could just come right away and I could bring my family. I'd probably do it. Because I don't care about the laws of America. I'm not American. That's the point. So I get it. I understand why you do it. But you got to go. You still have to go. We still got to round you up and kick you out. Because this is America. And our priority is America and Americans. And it's just that simple. There's one other clip. I think there was one other clip I wanted to play. Another interesting moment from this back and forth. Like I said, this went on for a while, but let's play this one.
For the school system, do you agree that there should be Christian implementation, or do you think that school system should be neutral and be focused on science, literature, reading, writing, arithmetic?
Well, I reject the idea that anything is purely neutral. Okay, there are, for example, let's take a basic scientific fact, and this is a little spicy. I'm not trying to make this too controversial, but take the basic scientific fact of, can you take a pill to change your biological gender? Okay? Now that's something that 15 years ago, quite literally, every single scientist in the Western world would have said, absolutely not, that's crazy, and now people will. I think the premise of your question, I don't totally share it, because I don't think perfect neutrality is possible. What is it? You talk about history. Was Christopher Columbus a great explorer, or was he a guy who committed genocide against the native populations? These debates, I'm happy to have them, but I reject the idea that there are truly neutral debates. Anybody who's telling you their view is neutral likely has an agenda to sell you, and I'm at least honest about the fact that I think the Christian foundation of this country is a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Not a lot to add to it, but I think that this is for so long, we've heard even conservatives have been complaining. Well, only conservatives have been complaining about the fact that the education in the public school system is biased, that it's indoctrinating, and so we need an unbiased education. We need education, not indoctrination, and that's always been a false premise. Because, as J.D. Vance points out, an unbiased education is impossible. Unless you're being educated by a robot, and even then, it's still impossible because somebody programmed that robot, and so you got the biases of the program, whoever made the robot. And if your teacher is a person, then they have their own perspective, they have their own bias, they have their own point of view, they have their own worldview, their own value system, and all of that is going to be in the education they provide to you. There is no way around it. It's impossible. Impossible. So our point is not that we want an education that doesn't have a worldview attached. We want an education that doesn't have the wrong worldview, a bad worldview, a degenerate and destructive worldview. That's what we're looking for. Which is why I'm such an advocate for homeschooling. Or if you can find a good Christian private school, and they're not all good. By far, they're not all good. And it's the same, and so it's the same thing with indoctrination. Education, not indoctrination. No, it's both, actually, is what we want. You are indoctrinating a child. It's just we don't want them to indoctrinate. We don't want them to be indoctrinated wrongly into the wrong way of thinking. But indoctrination, that just means you're instilling a worldview. You're instilling a value system. And obviously you want to do that with your kids. To try to be objective or neutral about that would be insane. To say to your kid, well, I'm not going to tell you what you should value. I want you to figure it out all on your own. All you're doing there is you're sending them into the arms of somebody else who will gladly step in and say, okay, well, if your parents don't want to do that, so I will gladly guide you towards the value system that I want you to have. So all of that stuff is part of education. It can never not be a part of it. And we have to accept that and adopt that into the way we educate our children. That's why I'm such an advocate for homeschooling. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.